Maya Chen stifled a yawn as she trailed behind her classmates through the Museum of Xenorchaeology. The air smelled of cleaning solution and recycled air, and the hollow echo of footsteps bounced off pristine white walls. Their teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, gestured enthusiastically at yet another display case filled with fragments of alien pottery, her voice carrying the forced excitement of someone trying to interest teenagers in ancient history. And here we have artifacts from humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council over 200 years ago. Maya's attention drifted. She'd been up late again, working on a new music composition for her YouTube channel. The soft hum of the museum's environmental systems created a subtle bassline rhythm that only she seemed to notice. Her fingers tapped unconsciously against her thigh, matching the beat. That's when she heard it, or rather, felt it. A different frequency, cutting through the building's ambient noise. Her steps slowed as she approached the source. A holographic display tucked away in a corner, nearly hidden behind a larger exhibition about early interstellar trade routes. The hologram flickered with swirling alien symbols, casting a pale blue glow across her face. A small plaque identified it as the Xulthrix puzzle, an untranslated artifact that had confounded xenolinguists and mathematicians for centuries. But Maya wasn't seeing symbols anymore. As her eyes traced the flowing patterns, her mind automatically converted them into musical notation. The way they curved and intersected, the spacing between characters, the rhythmic repetition of certain elements. It was a score, written in 3 dimensions. Maya, we're moving on to the next section. Ms. Rodriguez called from across the hall. Just a minute, Maya replied, already pulling out her phone. She opened her music theory app and began photographing the display from different angles. Each new perspective revealed another layer of the composition. Her heart raced as she hummed a few notes, matching them to the symbols. "What are you doing?" Maya jumped. A security guard had materialized beside her, eyeing her phone suspiciously. "Sorry. These symbols, they're not just writing. They're music." The words tumbled out before she could stop them. The guard's expression shifted from suspicion to the patronizing smile adults often gave when humoring a teenager. "That's a nice theory, but this puzzle has been studied by the brightest minds in the galaxy. If it was music, don't you think someone would have noticed by now?" Maya's cheeks burned, but she stood her ground. "Look at this sequence here." She pointed to a particularly dense cluster of symbols. It repeats with slight variations, like a chorus. And these spiral patterns, they're not math equations, they're time signatures, but in 3 dimensions instead of 2. The guard opened his mouth to respond, but Maya was already lost in the puzzle again. She pulled up her audio editing software and began mapping the symbols to frequencies, her fingers flying across the screen. The first few notes came together in a haunting sequence that made the hair on her arms stand up. "Maya." Ms. Rodriguez's voice was more insistent now. "We need to stay with the group." Reluctantly, Maya backed away from the display, but her mind was racing with possibilities. She had to find out if her theory was right. As she hurried to catch up with her class, she sent the photos and preliminary frequency mappings to her home computer. She'd need her better equipment to properly analyze the patterns. The rest of the field trip passed in a blur. Maya nodded at appropriate intervals while her teacher explained the significance of various artifacts, but her thoughts kept returning to the puzzle. She could still see the symbols dancing behind her closed eyelids, could hear the partial melody she'd decoded teasing at the edges of her consciousness. That night would be the first of many she'd spend unraveling the mystery of the Xulthrix puzzle. But in that moment, standing in the quiet corner of the museum, Maya Chen had no idea she'd just stumbled upon a discovery that would change not only her life, but the fate of hundreds of worlds. Maya's bedroom had transformed into a makeshift research station over the past 3 days. Sheet music covered her desk, spilling onto the floor in concentric circles. Her 3 monitors displayed different aspects of the puzzle: the original hologram photos, her frequency analysis software, and a growing database of Xulthrix archaeological records she'd found online. Sleep was a distant memory. Every time she closed her eyes, new patterns emerged in her mind, demanding to be tested. Her mother had already tried twice to convince her to come down for dinner, but Maya couldn't pull herself away. She was close to something. She could feel it. "Just 5 more minutes," she muttered, adjusting another sequence in her audio software. The alien symbols had yielded 12 distinct bass frequencies so far, but they didn't match any known human musical scale. She tried mapping them to everything from classical Western notation to ancient Chinese pentatonic scales, but nothing quite fit. A soft knock at her door barely registered. "Maya, honey, you've barely eaten today." "Coming, Mom. Just need to finish this one thing." Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, transposing the latest sequence. The resulting sound was discordant, almost painful to human ears, but there was a mathematical beauty to it that she couldn't ignore. Her mother pushed the door open, carrying a plate of sandwiches. She stopped short at the sight of the room. "Oh my God, Maya. This is getting out of hand." Maya spun in her chair, ready to defend her work, when a sudden vibration caught her attention. The water glass on her nightstand was trembling, creating ripples in perfect synchronization with her latest audio sequence. "Mom, look." Maya quickly adjusted the frequency, and the water responded, forming complex patterns on its surface. She grabbed her phone and started recording. It's not just sound, it's creating specific vibrational patterns. The Zlothrix weren't writing music for listening. They were writing it for seeing. Her mother set down the plate, concern etched on her face. "Maybe you should take a break. Get some sleep." But Maya was already uploading the video to the xenoarchaeology forum she joined. Her hands shook with excitement as she typed out her findings, linking them to her previous frequency analysis posts. The response was immediate. Her inbox exploded with notifications, private messages from researchers, comments from xenomusicologists, and even a few angry responses claiming she was defacing serious academic work with teenage musical fantasies. Then came the message that changed everything. Professor Sarah Chen Martinez, no relation, though Maya wished there was, from the Berkeley Institute of Xenoarchaeology, had sent a priority communication. Attached were sensor readings from a recent excavation of Zlothrix ruins on Proximab. The patterns matched Maya's frequency maps with 99.7% accuracy. Maya's phone rang moments later. Her hands trembled as she answered. "Is this Maya Chen?" The voice was breathless, excited. "This is Professor Chen Martinez. I'm currently on a maglev to your city. Those patterns you discovered, they're revolutionary. We've been scanning those ruins for decades, picking up what we thought was random electromagnetic noise. But it's not noise at all, is it?" Maya sank onto her bed, her mother watching with growing concern. "It's music," Maya confirmed. "But not for ears. It's like architectural sheet music. The frequencies aren't meant to be heard. They're meant to resonate with specific materials." "Exactly." The professor's voice cracked with excitement. "We need to test this theory immediately. I have equipment, specialized sensors. I can be there in 3 hours. Would you be willing to meet?" Maya looked at her mother, who was now reading the forum responses over her shoulder with wide eyes. The plate of sandwiches sat forgotten on the desk. "Let me talk to your parents," the professor added quickly, probably sensing the tension. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." "Maya, do you realize what this means? Every Zlothrix ruin we've discovered could be part of a larger composition. You might have just unlocked the key to their entire civilization." As Maya handed the phone to her mother, her computer chimed with another notification. More researchers were coming forward with collaborative evidence. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but Maya had a feeling they were just scratching the surface of what the Zlothrix had left behind. The sleepy coastal town of Port Mendocino had never seen anything like it. Alien ships of all shapes and sizes crowded the sky, their hulls reflecting sunlight in iridescent patterns. The local diner, Sally's Sunrise Cafe, had hastily added universal translator units to each table and posted a sign reading "All species welcome" in 17 different languages. Maya sat in her usual booth, trying to focus on her tablet while Dr. Koval, the renowned Zulthrix historian, experienced their first ice cream sundae. The tall, crystalline scaled being made a sound somewhere between a chirp and a purr as they sampled the whipped cream. Fascinating. Dr. Koval's translator rendered their clicks and whistles into smooth English. The temperature variance creates an entirely new sensory experience, much like the harmonic variations in our ancient texts. They paused, multiple faceted eyes focusing on Maya. Speaking of which, your latest frequency analysis. A flash from outside interrupted them. Another media drone, pressing against the diner's window. Maya slumped lower in her seat. Ever since her discovery had been verified by the Galactic Council, privacy had become a distant memory. "Maybe we should continue this at the research facility," Maya suggested, watching as Sally shooed away the drone with her ancient broom. The cafe owner had become fiercely protective of her young regular customer. Indeed, Dr. Koval's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green. "Though I must admit, the publicity serves a purpose. Your discovery has forced many of my colleagues to reconsider centuries of assumptions about my ancestors." Maya's phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. "Keep alien SECR it is buried." She deleted it without commenting. The local police and galactic security were already tracking the sources of these threats. "I still don't understand why the Zulthrix would encode their messages in musical frequencies," Maya said, trying to distract herself from the harassment. "Wouldn't written warnings be more reliable?" Dr. Koval's scales rippled with amusement. "You assume writing was their primary mode of communication. Consider this. What if music, or rather, resonant frequencies, were as natural to them as speech is to humans?" Before Maya could respond, the diner's door chimed. A delegation of Arcturian scientists entered, their atmospheric suits humming softly. Behind them came Professor Chen Martinez, looking harried but excited. "Maya, Dr. Koval, the latest scans from the Australian site just came in." The professor rushed to their table, her tablet projecting a hologram of swirling data points. "The frequency patterns match exactly. It's not just a single message. The puzzle is part of a galaxy-wide network." The Arcturians crowded around, their suit-mounted sensors analyzing the data. Their crystalline appendages clicked rapidly as they communicated among themselves. "That's not all," one of them translated for the group. "We've detected similar resonance patterns in several supposedly dormant Zulthrix structures. They're active, but operating at frequencies just beyond normal detection ranges." Dr. Koval's scales paled dramatically. They set down their spoon, ice cream forgotten. "The prophecy of harmonic convergence," they whispered. "But that's just a myth." "What prophecy?" Maya asked, but she was drowned out by a sudden commotion outside. A sleek diplomatic vessel was descending from orbit, bearing the insignia of the Galactic Council's High Chamber. "They're early," Professor Chen Martins muttered, checking her watch. The emergency session wasn't supposed to begin until tomorrow. Maya watched as the ship landed in the hastily cleared parking lot. Her small town had become the center of galactic attention, all because she'd heard music in an alien puzzle. The weight of it all suddenly felt overwhelming. Dr. Koval must have sensed her anxiety. They placed a crystalline hand gently on her shoulder. "You've discovered something remarkable, Maya Chen. But I fear we've only begun to understand its implications. The question now is, are we ready for what the full message might reveal?" As the Galactic Council representatives approached the diner, Maya squared her shoulders. Ready or not, she was part of something bigger than herself now. The melody of the universe was playing, and somehow, she'd been chosen to help decode its mysterious song. The hastily assembled research lab hummed with activity, even at 3 a.m. Holographic displays filled the converted warehouse space, each showing different aspects of the Zulthrix puzzle. Maya sat cross-legged on a cushioned platform, surrounded by speakers calibrated to frequencies most humans couldn't perceive. Dr. Koval stood nearby, their crystalline form reflecting the holographic light in mesmerizing patterns. "Try the third sequence again," Dr. Koval suggested, their scales shifting to a deep purple of concentration. "But this time, layer it with the resonance pattern from the Australian site." Maya adjusted the frequencies on her custom interface. After 3 weeks of continuous work, she'd gotten better at manipulating the alien harmonics. The air shimmered as the sound waves intersected, creating visible patterns in the space between the speakers. "There's something we're missing," Maya muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. "These patterns, they're not just separate messages. They're parts of a whole, like different instruments in an orchestra." Professor Chen Martinez looked up from her data terminal. "The energy readings are strange. Each time we layer the frequencies, there's a power spike that doesn't match any known physical laws." Maya closed her eyes, letting the frequencies wash over her. Something about the rhythm nagged at her consciousness. "It's like a heartbeat," she said slowly, "but it's getting faster." Dr. Koval suddenly straightened, their scales flashing alarm white. "Play all sequences simultaneously," they commanded. "Quick." Maya's fingers flew across the interface, bringing all the discovered frequency patterns into harmony. The air in the center of the lab began to ripple violently. Equipment rattled on shelves, and warning alerts blared from multiple monitors. "Emergency shutdown." Professor Chen Martinez began, but Dr. Koval cut her off. "No. Look." In the center of the convergence, points of light had begun to appear. They hung in the air like suspended stars, gradually arranging themselves into a 3-dimensional pattern. Maya gasped as she recognized the formation. "It's a star map," she whispered. But Dr. Koval was shaking, their scales cycling through colors so rapidly it was dizzying to watch. "Not just any star map. This is the path of resonance from our ancient texts. The route our ancestors took when they stopped abruptly." "When they what?" Maya pressed. Before Dr. Koval could answer, the pattern of stars began to pulse. One by one, they flickered in sequence, creating a new rhythm that Maya instinctively began to tap out on her interface. "It's counting down," Professor Chen Martinez breathed, her face illuminated by the dancing lights. "These stellar positions, they're not just locations. They're timestamps." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "How long?" The professor's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Based on stellar drift calculations, just under 3 months." "Until what?" Maya asked, though part of her already knew the answer wouldn't be good. Dr. Koval's voice was barely a whisper. "Until the discord begins. The prophecy speaks of a time when the very fabric of space would begin to unravel. Our ancestors, they didn't vanish. They left to prepare." The holographic stars continued their deadly countdown, casting shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. Maya watched as one star pulsed red, then another, the sequence spreading like a virus through the celestial display. "Can we stop it?" Maya asked. Dr. Koval's scales settled into a deep midnight blue. "The puzzle wasn't just a message, Maya. It was a key. A key to something my ancestors built, something they couldn't activate themselves because they knew their time was ending. They left it for whoever could understand their harmonic language. And now we have less than 3 months to figure out what it unlocks," Professor Chen Martinez added grimly. Maya stared at the pulsing star map, her mind already beginning to translate the stellar movements into musical patterns. The universe itself was trying to tell them something, singing a song of warning that had waited centuries to be heard. "Then we better get to work," she said, turning back to her interface. The countdown continued its relentless rhythm, marking time until either their salvation or their doom. The harmonic convergence hung in low Earth orbit, its crystalline spires designed to detect and amplify cosmic frequencies. Maya floated in the observation dome, watching her home planet spin beneath her. After 2 weeks in space, she still hadn't gotten used to zero gravity, But at least she'd stopped getting sick every time she looked out the windows. Still working on your space legs? Captain Sarah Chen Martinez, newly promoted from professor to expedition leader, drifted into the dome. The captain's usual lab coat had been replaced by a sleek uniform bearing both Earth Alliance and Galactic Council insignias. I think my inner ear is permanently confused, Maya admitted, pushing off gently from a handrail. But Dr. Koval says that might actually help with detecting subtle frequency variations, something about chaos theory and neural adaptation. A soft chime echoed through the ship's corridors, followed by a rush of activity. Maya caught herself on a support beam as several xenomusicologists hurried past the dome's entrance, their equipment floating behind them in neat magnetic formations. "Another harmonic spike?" she asked. The captain nodded, her expression tight. "Third one today. They're getting stronger as we approach the coordinates. But we're also picking up something else. Come see." They made their way to the bridge, where Dr. Koval and a team of scientists huddled around a massive holographic display. The star map Maya had discovered pulsed steadily in the center, but now new patterns were emerging around it. "Watch this sector," Dr. Koval said, their scales shimming with excitement. They gestured to a cluster of stars near the ship's projected course. "When we amplify the background frequencies." The hologram zoomed in, and Maya gasped. Hidden within the cosmic background radiation was a series of perfectly spaced energy pulses, like musical notes written in starlight. "It's a beacon," Maya realized. "The device, whatever it is, it's singing to us." More than that, one of the Arcturian scientists added, their environment suit humming as they adjusted their sensors. "These patterns match fragments we've detected in stellar nurseries, black hole events, even galaxy rotation curves. The Zlothrix didn't create these frequencies. They discovered them. The entire universe is structured around these harmonics." A sudden alarm blared through the ship. Maya instinctively grabbed a handhold as the vessel's artificial gravity fluctuated. "Energy spike," called out the sensor operator. "Something's interfering with our drive harmonics." Dr. Koval moved to a control panel, their crystalline fingers dancing across the interface. "The beacon. It's not just showing us the way. It's testing us. We need to match its frequency or—" The ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across every display. "Hull stress reaching critical levels," the engineering officer reported. "Standard compensators aren't responding." Maya closed her eyes, letting the chaos fade away. She could feel it, the subtle vibration running through the ship's structure, a discord seeking resolution. Without opening her eyes, she pushed off toward her station. "Maya, what are you?" the captain began. "It's like tuning an instrument." Maya interrupted, her fingers finding the frequency controls. "We're trying to force our way through, but we need to adapt, to become part of the symphony." She began adjusting the ship's harmonic output, not by the mathematical formulas the engineers had calculated, but by feeling, by instinct, the same way she'd first recognized the music in the Zolthrix puzzle. Gradually, the shuddering subsided. The warning lights dimmed. On the holographic display, new patterns emerged, showing a clear path through the sea of stars. "Remarkable," Dr. Koval whispered, their scales glowing with a deep blue respect. "You didn't just match the frequency. You found the harmony within it. The ship is now part of the universal chorus." Captain Chen Martinez squeezed Maya's shoulder. "Good work, but we're not done yet. Those coordinates are still 3 days out, and the countdown hasn't slowed." Maya nodded, watching the stars drift past the bridge windows. Somewhere ahead lay the answer to the Zolthrix puzzle, a device powerful enough to affect the fundamental harmonics of space itself. They were racing against time to prevent a cosmic catastrophe, armed with nothing but mathematics, music, and hope. "At least now," she said softly, "we know we're on the right frequency." The harmonic convergence emerged from its final jump to find a structure that defied comprehension. Against the backdrop of space floated what looked like a cosmic orchestra hall, its crystalline spires stretching for kilometers in every direction. The entire construct pulsed with a faint blue luminescence that seemed to beat in time with the universe itself. "Size estimates coming in," the sensor officer reported, her voice hushed with awe. "Main structure is roughly 12 kilometers in diameter. Those outer rings appear to be some kind of frequency amplification array." Maya pressed her hand against the bridge window, feeling subtle vibrations through the reinforced glass. Even at this distance, the structure was emanating harmonics powerful enough to resonate through the ship's hull. "Look at the architecture," Dr. Cavol breathed, their scales shifting through shades of wonder. "Those aren't just aesthetic choices. Each spire, each arc is positioned to capture and channel specific frequencies. It's a cosmic instrument of unprecedented scale." Captain Chen Martin studied the preliminary scans. "Any sign of active defense systems?" "Negative," replied the tactical officer. "But these energy readings, they're like nothing we've ever encountered. The power output is comparable to a small star." Maya closed her eyes, focusing on the vibrations. "It's incomplete," she said suddenly. "Listen to the resonance. There are gaps in the harmony, like missing notes in a chord." Dr. Cavol moved to a sensor display, adjusting the frequency analysis. "She's right. The structure is active but dormant, waiting." The captain made her decision. "Prepare a boarding team. Full environmental suits with frequency dampeners. We can't risk being overwhelmed by the harmonics at close range." An hour later, Maya found herself floating through the structure's main entrance chamber, her suit's magnetic boots providing tenuous contact with the crystalline floor. The interior was a maze of transparent corridors and vast, cathedral-like spaces, each designed to capture and amplify specific cosmic frequencies. "These markings," Dr. Cavol said over the comm, "they're crystalline hand-tracing patterns on a wall. They're maintenance instructions. The Zolthrix knew others would need to understand how to operate the device." "But operate it for what?" Professor Chen Martinez asked, scanning another section. Their answer came as they entered what appeared to be a central control room. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a complex model of their local star cluster. In the simulation, waves of energy rippled between the stars, creating patterns Maya recognized from her music theory studies. "It's showing harmonic relationships between stellar bodies," she realized. "The stars, they're resonating with each other, creating a kind of cosmic music." Dr. Cavol's scales had gone pale. "And there's the discord." They pointed to a growing distortion in the model, a chaotic pattern that spread from star to star like a virus, a cascade failure in the fundamental frequencies that hold spacetime together. "My ancestors discovered it was coming but couldn't prevent it themselves." "Why not?" Maya asked, studying the control interfaces that lined the chamber. "Because their civilization was already failing," Dr. Cavol replied softly. "The same sensitivity to cosmic harmonics that made them great builders also made them vulnerable. When the first discordant frequencies began to appear, it affected them physically. They knew they wouldn't survive to see their solution implemented." Captain Chen Martinez activated another display, revealing a countdown synchronized with the one they'd discovered on Earth. "So they built this device to prevent the cascade, then left puzzles across the galaxy hoping someone else would find it in time." "Not just anyone," Dr. Cavol corrected. "Someone who could truly understand music as they did. Someone who could feel the harmonies intuitively." Their faceted eyes turned to Maya. "They were waiting for someone like you." Maya floated to the central control panel, her hands hovering over interfaces designed for beings long extinct. The structure hummed around them, its frequencies shifting subtly, like an orchestra warming up before a performance. "No pressure," she whispered to herself, as the countdown continued its relentless march toward zero. "The resonance patterns are destabilizing faster than predicted," an Arcturian scientist announced, their environment suit pulsing with warning lights. "We have less than 6 hours before the cascade becomes irreversible." Maya barely heard them. She was lost in the complex harmonics emanating from the ancient machine's control systems. The central chamber had transformed into a symphony of light and sound, holographic interfaces swirling around her as she worked to understand the Zolthric's calibration system. The greatest scientific minds in the galaxy are present, and we're placing our hopes on a human teenager, someone muttered in the back of the room. The universal translator didn't identify the speaker. That's exactly why she'll succeed, Dr. Cavol responded, their scales rippling with conviction. Your scientists think in equations. Maya thinks in music. Maya tuned out the debate, focusing instead on the frequencies flowing through her hands. The control interface responded to touch, each contact producing new harmonies that rippled through the structure. It was like playing an instrument the size of a small moon. These calculations are impossible, Professor Chen Martinez said, reviewing the latest data. The number of variables involved in stabilizing an entire star cluster. We'd need a supercomputer just to process the possibilities. That's because you're trying to solve it like a math problem, Maya said quietly, her eyes still closed. But the Zolthrics didn't build this machine to calculate. They built it to sing. She adjusted another frequency pattern, and the chamber's lighting shifted. The holographic star map pulsed in response, its colors changing as different harmonies came into alignment. Look at this, Maya continued, growing more confident. Each star has its own resonant frequency, like a note in a scale. When they're in harmony, they stabilize each other. The cascade is happening because that harmony is breaking down. Dr. Cavol moved closer, their crystalline form vibrating slightly with the machine's frequencies. But how do we restore it? Maya opened her eyes, a smile spreading across her face. The same way you'd fix a discordant orchestra. You don't start by tuning every instrument separately. You start with one perfect note and let everything else align to it. Her fingers danced across the interface, adjusting and fine-tuning. The machine responded instantly, its spires beginning to pulse with new energy. The star map shifted, showing waves of harmonic resonance spreading outward from their location. Energy output increasing exponentially, called out the sensor officer. The outer arrays are amplifying the frequencies. Warning alerts blared as power surged through the ancient structure. The deck vibrated beneath their magnetic boots, and several scientists backed away from their stations. Maya, the power levels are exceeding safety limits, Captain Chen Martins warned. Maybe we should. No, Maya interrupted, her voice firm. Listen. And suddenly, they could all hear it. Through the ship's sensors, through their suits, through the structure itself, a pure, perfect tone that seemed to resonate with the fabric of space-time itself. The holographic display showed the harmonics spreading faster now, reaching star after star, bringing each one into alignment with the cosmic symphony. It's working, Dr. Cavol whispered, their scales glowing with joy. The cascade is reversing. The harmony is being restored. Maya made one final adjustment, and the machine's output stabilized. The warning alerts faded, replaced by a steady, peaceful hum that filled the chamber. On the star map, the chaotic patterns of the cascade were disappearing, replaced by the stable, rhythmic pulsing of stars in perfect harmony. How did you know? Professor Chen Martinez asked, staring at the display in amazement. How did you understand what the Zolthric's engineers wanted? Maya released her hold on the controls, watching as the machine continued its work autonomously now that the proper frequencies had been established. Because music isn't just about playing the right notes, she said softly. It's about feeling the rhythm of the piece, understanding how each part relates to the whole. The Zolthrics didn't want someone to solve their puzzle. They wanted someone who could hear the song they left behind. 5 years after the harmonic convergence event, Maya stood at the podium of the newly inaugurated Interstellar Conservatory of Astromusical Science. The building's architecture was a stunning blend of human and Zolthric's design principles, its crystalline spires humming with a gentle resonance that made visitors feel like they were standing inside a cosmic instrument. When I first looked at that ancient puzzle in a museum corner, I never imagined it would lead to this, Maya began, addressing the assembled crowd of humans and aliens. I was just a teenager who loved music and couldn't help but see patterns where others saw chaos. The audience included familiar faces: Captain Chin Martinez, now Admiral of Earth's first harmonic exploration fleet; Dr. Koval, their scales shimmering with pride from the front row; and dozens of scientists and musicians from across the galaxy who had come to study what humans called the music of the spheres. The Zulthrix left us more than just a device to prevent cosmic disaster, Maya continued, gesturing to the holographic displays showing real-time harmonic data from nearby star systems. They left us a new way of understanding the universe itself. Every star, every planet, every particle vibrates with its own unique frequency. Together, they create a symphony more complex and beautiful than any single civilization could compose. A soft tone chimed through the hall, a harmonic resonance from a distant pulsar that the conservatory sensors had just detected. The sound blended perfectly with the building's ambient frequencies, demonstrating the very principles Maya was discussing. In the past 5 years, we've used these principles to revolutionize space travel, energy production, and interstellar communication. But more importantly, we've learned to listen, not just to the cosmos, but to each other. Every species brings its own unique perspective, its own way of hearing the universal symphony. Maya touched a control on the podium, and the hall's acoustic field shifted. The holographic displays showed a real-time visualization of the harmonic networks that now connected thousands of worlds. Green lines pulsed between stars, showing the stable frequencies that the Zulthrix device maintained. The old museum ticket that started this journey hangs in my office upstairs, Maya said, smiling at the memory. Next to it is a star chart showing all the systems we saved. But what means the most to me is this. She gestured, and a new hologram appeared. A 3-dimensional musical score that combined traditional human notation with Zulthrix harmonic patterns. This is the first piece composed jointly by human and alien musicians, using the principles we learned from the ancient device. We call it the Bridge Between Stars. As if on cue, the score began to play through the hall's harmonic field generators. The music was unlike anything Earth had ever produced, a blend of conventional instruments and cosmic frequencies that made the very air shimmer with complex patterns. Today, we open this conservatory not just as a school or research facility, but as a promise to the Zulthrix and to ourselves. A promise to keep listening, to keep learning, and to remember that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from our instruments or our equations, but from our ability to hear the music in the unknown. The piece reached its crescendo, and Maya could see tears in many human eyes, while their alien guests displayed their own signs of emotional response. Flashing scales, glowing appendages, and resonating crystals all pulsing in harmony with the music. 5 years ago, I was just a girl who heard a pattern in an alien puzzle. Today, we're all part of something greater, a cosmic community united by the understanding that, at its heart, the universe isn't just mathematical, it's musical. As the composition ended, Maya looked out at the assembled beings, former adversaries now united in study, rivals turned colleagues, skeptics transformed into believers. The soft hum of the building's harmonic field remained, a constant reminder of the mystery still waiting to be discovered. The symphony continues, she concluded softly, and we're all invited to play our part.